Today on the Star Trek Universe podcast, we're talking about the new Section 31 series, if it actually happens. We're talking about Michael Chabon's responsibility to the Star Trek canon. And is Megan Fox going to be in Star Trek? All that after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
Man, so we got talking news today, eh, Davo?
Yeah, a little bit of news. It finally built up to an episode after 2 or 3 weeks.
I think we just did a news episode like not too long ago. I feel like we're in a big dead space of Star Trek stuff coming out. So I feel like, you know, having a news episode every once in a while is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm good with it every couple weeks.
Yeah, me too. This one is very exciting for me.
Is it?
Yeah. Go ahead. Just tell us what that first story is.
All right. So Deadline is reporting that Michelle Yeoh is in talks to play Emperor Giorgio. Spoilers for Discovery.
Spoiler alert for Discovery. This will spoil Discovery. This conversation about the news.
And it's going to be about Section 31 and her adventures in whatever capacity as an operative of Section 31.
What? Mind blown.
Yeah. And she's already set to appear in the second season, and they're going to get into the Section 31. And I don't know if they have that bonus scene that they released after Discovery finale'd last year. And with the Section 31 guy hunting her down and offering her a role in Section 31.
So is that supposed to be canon, that scene, or is it a deleted scene or a bonus? Okay, so it's a bonus.
It is a deleted scene, but it is also a bonus scene. Like, I don't think they would have released it like they did if they didn't. They were just trying to tease us for season 2. Okay.
See, I guess I didn't even hear about that deleted scene. So, but now we're doing this podcast. I'm sure I'll hear about the next one. But it kind of annoys me because as someone who watched the whole thing, I never got an alert that, hey, here's another piece of the canon that you missed. Because I have not seen that scene yet.
I'm sorry, man. I should have sent it to you.
Yeah. What the F?
I don't know. I really dropped the ball.
You really did. I'm sorry. Did. It's okay. So, yeah, this is very exciting, right? We've been asking for a Section 31 series for a long time.
I haven't, but I'm good with it, yeah.
I think the fandom in general has been excited about Section 31 and the prospects.
I don't think so.
Totally.
I'm excited about it.
Totally disagree with you. This has been talked about a whole lot over the years, and I'm excited. Especially, we talk a lot about on this show about the sort of moral ambiguity kind of being sucked out of Star Trek, and how I think that makes the worst Star Trek is when the moral ambiguity is gone. And Section 31 is all about moral ambiguity.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is good news for Star Trek in my mind.
Yeah. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Michelle Yeoh was talking to IGN, and she said, in the whole universe, this is probably her best toy, because Section 31 has all the most updated gadgets, because they are the most informed. And she, as an engineer, she can hack into Section 31. And she, Leland thinks she's in charge of the ship, but she finds out secrets, because that's what Section 31 does. It's collected secrets all over the universe about certain people and history and things like that. And so when you have those kinds of secrets, it's power. And for Philippa Georgiou, that's perfect. So if she has to be there, or she has to be here, she wants to be in Section 31, and she wants to run it, right? I feel like that is kind of telling us what this Section 31 show might be.
Right.
A little bit.
Well, we already know she's coming from a place of extreme power. She's also coming from a place where she believes in the supremacy of the Empire, which the closest analog to the Empire in this universe, in the Prime universe, is the Federation. So it actually weirdly is. like it's a connection I never would have seen, but it also is sort of a perfect connection, and it should have been obvious that it's possible that the roots of Section 31, like maybe the direction Section 31 takes or whatever, could lie in someone from the Mirror Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we don't know how old Section 31 is, but if Giorgio has an impact on it, the echoes that we see in Deep Space Nine could be like an actual result of Giorgio's pushing Section 31 in that direction, which I think is smart and cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of those things I was asking for, but I'm excited about it. Like, I'll watch this. I loved Section 31 on DS9.
Right.
I was excited when they were kind of picking up threads of that with Reed on Enterprise. Spoilers.
I won't say you were currently asking for it, but I know for a fact me and you have discussed how badass over the years, over the course of the last 20 years, we have discussed many times a Section 31 series. So may not have been currently asking for it, but we have definitely asked for it in the past.
Yeah, and we both got excited about those Section 31 novels that came out. I don't think we ever read them.
I think I own probably all of them.
Me too.
But I just, make an audiobook, people.
Yeah.
It's things. I like reading. I really do. And I know it makes me sound like an idiot when I just admit that I just don't read books anymore. But it's like it's the fast-paced world, man. I don't have time to do anything. I'm like, every time I have downtime, I have so much to do. I don't think I've mentioned it much on this cast, but my job is to be I'm a musician by trade, and like everything I do, I have to be kind of self-motivated. So every time I have downtime, I'm just like looking at my to-do list, like what thing do I have to do? What thing do I have to record or promote or make or I'm constantly working on my music career and also podcasting, but it just, I don't have time to sit and read a book. I just don't. Most of the entertainment that I absorb while I'm doing other things, while I'm driving somewhere or whatever. So,
it is sadly a staple of my life as well. I still do read, but it takes me a really long time now. Like, it's hard to get through a book.
Yeah.
Just in terms of time and how long it takes.
Yeah, I am currently reading a book, like actually sitting down and reading a book, and it's taken me so long because I steal away a few moments here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Modern world, man.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
Well, I did want to mention that last week, CBS CEO Joe Iannello was talking to investors on their plans for expanding Star Trek. Because we were wondering what the new animated Star Trek the new animated Star Trek show would be, who it would be aimed at, if it would be aimed at kids at all. And in this statement, he says a new Star Trek adult animated series called Lower Decks. So I did want to mention that real quick.
That's
and
cool.
I don't think we talked about how they picked it up for 2 years already.
No, I don't think we did. That's neat.
Yeah. So I did want to bring that up real quick.
I'm excited about CBS All Access doubling down on their Star Trek, tripling, quadrupling down, whatever we're getting. We've got 4 series in development, at least that we know about. Section 31, Picard, Animated, and Discovery. Mm-hmm. And the proposition of paying $7 a month for CBS All Access, I'm kind of mad at it because I feel like they're exploiting my love of Star Trek. But if they're going to give me this much of it, I stop feeling that way,
Yeah, I agree.
This much Star Trek and possible straight to CBS All Access movies coming, all of that, I'm very okay with this.
Well, I think they were also going for that when they initially announced the secret miniseries from Nicholas Meyer, which I don't know if that's gone. I don't know if that's still happening. As last I heard, it was a con series about his time after he went to SETI Alpha.
Huh. I don't know anything about that series. Again, I missed the news the entire time we weren't making this podcast, which was the entire time I lived until about 4 weeks ago or whatever. So
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you read, because then you can tell us the news.
Yeah. Michael Chabon, the showrunner for Star Trek Picard, is what I'm going to call it for now.
Pretty good name.
Yeah, I'll watch it. He was talking about his responsibility to canon. He also talked about, some of the just baseline Star Trek ideals and sort of waxed a lot on that. And I didn't include that in this news article. But the thing that interested me was what he had to say about canon and his responsibility to it. He says, any Star Trek writer, any writing room on any Star Trek show ever, let's say after the original series, had a responsibility to consider canon, to know your canon. Just speaking for me, that's an incredible pleasure, to have a legitimate excuse and get paid to nerd out completely. At the same time, this is true when you're dealing with any kind of canon. There's always gaps. There are cracks. There are contradictions. There are mysteries that we never got to hear the explanation of when people allude to things in canon and don't give any further explanation. Maybe the greatest example in all canon ever is the giant rat of Sumatra from Sherlock Holmes. Fans and writers ever since have tried to come up with possible explanations for that. So I think it's important not just to view canon as a barrier, as a perimeter beyond which you cannot go, a kind of a grid that you're trapped on. You try to find the loopholes, you find the empty areas, you find the things the canon doesn't seem to have anything to say, and you say it. And if you're really lucky, and you get to be working on a Star Trek show, then what you say becomes canon itself.
I agree with him, but sometimes I think the cracks are, he's seeing bigger cracks than I'm seeing.
Me too. I mean, all he's done with Star Trek is Calypso at this point.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm talking about the overall.
Yeah. We're talking about Kurtzman and all those guys.
Kurtzman, yeah. This whole administration.
Yeah. So far, all he's done is Calypso that we've seen.
Right. And again, that's a big swing. Like, you just locked canon for 1,000 years.
Kind of.
I mean, yeah. Like, I feel like he did. Like, if we're going to say it's in the same universe, and we jump forward 1,000 years, and we see Calypso, we know that the human race has to be out there, and it has to be factioned in such a way that there's a human-on-human war happening. Like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal that we know 1,000 years from now in Star Trek, we know the names of two races that are going to be at some sort of big intergalactic war. That's a big deal. Like, they could avoid it in the future. Like, if we have another time jump of another 100 years, and then another 100 years, and say 40 years from now we get to that time period of Calypso, then that either has to be, dealt with, or we have to throw one out on the scrap heap. Like, oh, yeah, those short treks, we're not considering them canon. I can absolutely see some in 30 years saying, those short treks, those weren't canon, those were just little...
Again, Chabon is running the Picard show now, and he has said he wants to finish the story of Craft and retell the Odyssey in terms of Star Trek, and he has said that he blatantly left a lot of that what's going on in the 1,000 years after Discovery stuff a mystery.
Sure.
So he wants to pick it back up.
Yeah, and I hope they get to.
Me too. Fans of Star Trek Discovery can get their Season 1 on iTunes now, if they're so inclined.
Needs to be on Netflix.
I understand, buddy.
That's all I'm saying. You want to bring new people to your Star Trek, put it on effing Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. Like, it's a year later. That's what shows do. They go on their network for the first year, and then a year-old episodes show up on these other streaming services. And sure, it's great. You can buy it now for $30 or whatever. But, like, if they want to capture new people's attention, if they want to capture the imagination of new people, these shows need to be somewhere new people can see them. Rant over. It was concise today.
Cool. So... You can also pre-order the Blu-ray and the DVD, which is coming out probably this week, I guess.
Oh, those triple dippers.
Yeah, but right now it's available on iTunes, $2.99 an episode or $34.99 for the full season.
Star Trek fans are some of the fans, though. Like, I see, this is great. You should be everywhere. Like, the more places this show is available, the better, in my mind. But Star Trek are the kinds of fans that are going to be like, well, maybe I want it on my iTunes, so it's on my Apple TV, and yeah, but I want it immediately, so I'm going to pay for it monthly. Also, I want the physical representation, so I'm going to buy the Blu-ray. You got to buy the Blu-ray. Like, this is just like, there are definitely people who are going to buy all three of these.
Yeah, absolutely, there are. And, I was looking at some of the comment sections on this news article, and there were just people, like, angrily saying, like, I'm waiting for the Blu-ray, I only buy physical. And other people are like, no, not. And then, like, other people are like, why are you angry about it? We're not doing that. Some of us want to do streaming. And then another person's like, yes, but you can't code a Blu-ray to have HDR like iTunes does. And then someone else is like, no, but iTunes only has the 720 version, FYI. The Blu-ray will have 1080. So, yeah, there's all that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. People like to watch things the way they like to watch it, which is why it should be available in all the places, including a streaming service. Rant over. Even shorter that time.
All right, so we're going to move over to the movies for right now.
Movies?
Yeah, I think. Maybe. All right, so Megan Fox. I know that there's a whole section of the audience who just went, oh.
Right. Megan Fox being mentioned on a Star Trek podcast is troubling. I will admit.
Absolutely, which is why it's included.
She may be very nice. I don't know her, but she's a pretty lady. I have not been very impressed with her acting.
Yeah,
But the story is Megan Fox. Continue.
Yes, Megan Fox released a picture of herself on a set with John Cho, and it looks like there's like a couch, and a couple of chairs and a little table in front. So it looks like an interview set, not so much a movie set. But she's with John Cho and some other guy who I don't recognize at all. And if you look at the little table in front of them, there's a little bitty starship on it.
Okay.
And she tagged the Star Trek account on Instagram and put a little gif of the logo of Star Trek The Next Generation on it. And a fan saw it, and on their Twitter account posted a picture, like a snapshot of the story, the Instagram story that Megan Fox put up, and tagged Star Trek and said, what's going on here? And the Star Trek account responded with a little half smile.
All right.
Which, has upset a number of people because it seems like they're going, yeah, it's happening.
Right. A half smile doesn't necessarily mean anything. And I'm not even upset.
Doesn't necessarily.
Especially these movies. These movies are, it's Star Trek, as you so succinctly discussed it last week, Star Trek 90210.
I didn't say that. I laughed at other people saying that.
I know. I was going to say the whole thing, which is, as you pointed out, already an old reference. You did not make that joke. You referenced the joke of a bunch of old people like ourselves that are so out of date that we're making a 15-year-old reference to reference it. But yeah, they're just a different universe, and it's just do their thing. Do your thing. If you're already kind of Michael Baying up Star Trek, you might as well bring Megan Fox into it.
No, see, I was going to say the last thing. Actually, I swear I was planning on telling you the last thing that the Abrams universe needs is to make it more like Michael Bay. Right.
I mean, if that's what you're going for, I guess just lean into it. Make it a fun. If we get Fast and the Furious Star Trek, I'm whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of resigned to the fact, you yourself, when it comes to canon, you get resigned to the fact that it's just all separate universes. I don't have to worry about it. Every episode is its separate individual thing, and it can be told, and it's a story, whatever. I don't feel that way, but at least with this, we have it is a defined separate universe. You can do whatever you want with it. And now that I have my own Star Trek, my fear over the many years of watching these movies has been that we were going to get, this was going to become what Star Trek is, and it's completely going to lose its identity. Mm-hmm. I think Discovery, especially now that we're rewatching it, which will be coming to you very soon, kind listener.
Dear, sweet, amiable listener.
Amiable. Yeah, we haven't really had a lot of feedback yet, so we don't know how amiable they are, man. Could be very angry out there.
No, man, I'm speaking it into existence.
So, on a rewatch, I'm really feeling like Discovery is at least trying to find a modern way of telling the kinds of stories that we love about Star Trek. Mm-hmm. I think that Discovery is at least trying. I'm not saying they're fully, embracing all of the tenets that I want it to, but it's getting there. It's trying. And with this Picard series, I really think that we're going to get Star Trek. And honestly, even just the fact that it's CBS All Access, as much as I hate the idea that it's so siloed off from the rest of culture, I like that it is Star Trek it's going to be Star Trek for Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
Like, I do like that it is Star Trek for Star Trek fans. I just wish that they would promote it to outside of the tent. Try to make it a bigger tent.
I think, you know where I stand on this. I think it's fine. I think Star Trek and the fandom of Star Trek the franchise itself is in a place where it's so niche. And, put up a paywall. Because certain fans they're gonna piss on it no matter what.
I know we've had this discussion before. I know we've had the discussion before, but it's fine to have a paywall. But if you don't do anything to reach new people, you're never going to grow.
But see, that's the problem. Because it's not going to do well enough on network TV. It's just not.
No, that's why you put it on Netflix. Breaking Bad is one of the first shows that gets this credit. Breaking Bad was a great show, but the first 2 seasons did horribly. No one watched it. It wasn't until it got put on Netflix and everyone was like sharing it with their friends and like, hey, it's a chemistry teacher cooking meth. It's an interesting story. And it got passed around on Netflix, and then it became the biggest show on television.
Well, why did that sound like Norm Macdonald doing Burt Reynolds on Celebrity Jeopardy?
I don't know.
Hey, it's a pretty good show. Hey, you should go over to Netflix and check it out. Turd Ferguson. That's a funny joke.
I like the reference. I don't think I sounded like that at all.
I think you did, Trebek. I think you did.
It's the way that people are reached these days is putting. I'm not even saying it has to be Netflix. You just got to make these episodes available for free for someone to be able to watch them, because a paywall is fine for people who love this stuff. A paywall is you're never going to get.
And for all we know, we're going to do it. For all we don't know that they're not going to do it. And they already have it on Netflix.
I hope they are.
Everywhere but here.
Right, exactly. I hope they are going to do it. And I'm saying it on this show because if anyone's listening, one day maybe they will. And I want to make I want to make it clear that I think that's the call they should make.
And I want to make it clear that I don't care.
And that's fine.
It'd be cool if it was on Netflix. But I love the show enough that I'm not going to wait. I'm going to buy CBS All Access so I can watch the show.
I think that's my point, is like the true fans of Star Trek are going to buy it. That we're not going to wait a year. We're going to watch the show as it comes out, especially with these big shocking turns they've made in the show and these revelations. Like, spoilers are a thing, and Star Trek fans are going to watch the show. They're going to watch it on CBS All Access, but a year later, it should be on Netflix. Or some comparable service that has a large audience that can watch it. Amazon Prime or Hulu would probably be fine. But I think probably Netflix is the place to go. Because you just got to bring in new people. And again, I say, I'm not talking about for me. I'm not mad for me. I'm mad for 10-year-old Matt right now. As I've said on previous episodes, I want 10-year-old Matt who's sitting somewhere to be able to watch Star Trek and get into new Star Trek. That's all I'm saying.
I know. I did want to ask you real quick, with Chris Pine apparently having walked away from Star Trek 4, do you think that it's possible John Cho's Sulu will become the captain? And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the franchise going forward if that's what they do?
I get, like, it kind of feels like, what's the point? And not that I don't like John Cho or Sulu, but it just kind of feels like those movies feel like they are Star Trek Greatest Hits albums or something. Like they're just doing this sort of, hey, it's those characters you love that are kind of like the TV show that used to be on. It's like a weird reboot, and it just would kind of feel like if you're going to do a Sulu thing, bring it over here, set it in the prime timeline. Like, I don't know. I'm fine with John Cho even playing it. Like, I don't know. It just I don't see the point, but I would watch it. I'd for sure watch it. And we never got to see those stories really. There was a lot of discussion of Sulu having his own series and stuff over the years.
See, one of the fun things about the Abrams verse for me is that they can kind of mix and match and kind of make new stories out of old stories. And I really liked the artist side. I didn't care for the art, but I really liked the comics that they were doing over at IDW that kind of told the story of what was going on in between movies. So I would be fine if they did like get rid of Kirk for some reason or another. Like if he, became an admiral and they made Sulu the captain, like
right.
Or if they made Spock the captain for the next one and had Sulu be the first officer, and then like a couple movies down the line, once Quinto doesn't come back, you could have Sulu take over. I don't know. I think it might be neat, and I think I've said this on the show before. When we were growing up, I always wondered like what it would be like if they had different like auteur directors come in and do their take on Star Trek.
Sure.
So I'm, as far as these movies are concerned, I would rather them do, as you put it so eloquently, Fast and Furious Star Trek, which I don't think it's quite there yet, but I would rather them do that in the movies than force that format onto Prime universe. Because I always felt like in those Next Generation movies, after First Contact, it was like a formula, and Picard had to get like semi-nude and run around and swing from ropes and shit.
It's real weird.
And do things that he never did on the show.
I know there are fangirls that are very attracted to Patrick Stewart, and he's a very attractive man.
He is.
But he wasn't that kind of captain. It wasn't in his character. It just felt real weird.
Yeah, it felt okay in First Contact, I feel like.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, it felt more accurate in Generations, where like he went and tried to be a little physical, and then he was like, no, I need to go back in time and get Kirk to do it.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like First Contact, I was thinking of a different movie, honestly. I was in my head, I had the Doom buggy scene.
That was Nemesis.
Yeah, I know. It just for a second I was thinking of the wrong movie. But yeah, First Contact felt like Picard.
And what's weird is, Nemesis was really critically panned when it came out, and a lot of the fans were talking about how it was the worst thing ever. Mm-hmm. And now going back and listening to podcasts and just reading different opinions online, Nemesis has really come around. Like, people have really clung to Nemesis for some reason as if it were a really good movie. It's not.
Weird. I'm sure at some point we will do a Nemesis review and rewatch that movie. Mm-hmm. But it'll probably be a while, because I think me and you probably agree that's one of the worst Star Trek movies.
I don't know. I do. I think so.
I mean, yeah. Like, I love a lot of the Star Trek movies. I think
that's the thing.
I think that's a horrible movie.
That's the thing, because a lot of people will be like, Star Trek fans will say, like, this one was good, this one was bad. There's the even numbers myth, which I don't agree with.
I think the even numbers myth has its merit. I think maybe it's the best ones are even, I think, to some degree.
I'm not even sure I agree with that. I mean, Nemesis was number 10.
Right, that was horrible. It breaks that mold for sure.
Star Trek 3 was an odd, and I love Star Trek 3.
I like Star Trek 3 a lot, but I still think that 4 and 2 are better than 3.
Yeah, I love Generations, even though it is a very flawed movie. And that's the thing, I love all of them. I love every movie. I even love Star Trek 5. I know it's very flawed,
Right.
I know, guys.
And I think that's the point. Like, I love them all because they're all Star Trek, and I will still enjoy watching them. That doesn't make them good.
Right.
And so I think that, like, the even numbers myth, as you call it, which, if you don't know, I don't know why we're talking about it in code, but yeah, they say that I'm sure anyone watching this, listening to this, probably already knows, but they say all the even numbers are the good Star Trek movies, and I think it holds some water. 2, 4, and 6 especially are great. I think they're great. And I think First Contact is also great. 2, 4, 6, and First Contact, I think that's pretty accurate that those are really good movies. And, I like Insurrection, but it's not as good as First Contact.
Yeah.
Just like as a film, I don't know. From like a stupid Fast and the Furious sentiment, but also from a character perspective and a Star Trek like lore perspective, and the whole going back to First Contact was super fun. I don't know, just it just bases itself in the world in a really cool way.
I would love to do a review of every Star Trek movie. By the way, I would love to. Me too.
We will definitely do that. We have 50 years of Star Trek to delve and talk about, and we will casually talk about a lot of it, but I would love to dig into pretty much everything eventually. And it's going to be harder the more stuff that's coming out. So I feel like this year, while we only have Discovery on the air, we should try to do some of those back episodes that we really, the stuff that we really want to do, like the movies. The movies will be fun. I think picking some of our favorite episodes. I want to rewatch all of Star Trek, honestly, just from every bit of it. I watched, have you heard Trexpertise? Have you seen Trexpertise, the YouTube channel?
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
There's a guy who puts this YouTube channel out called Trexpertise. He's actually based out of Birmingham, which is really cool because that's where we're based out of. But he does Star Trek reviews, and today he did he does Star Trek. He calls them video essays. Highly recommend. If you're listening to this, you'll love what he does. But he does video essays, and like today he did androids versus holograms. And he talked about basically the thrust of the thing was Data and his path to sort of citizenship on in the Next Generation, and kind of Picard's relationship to Data, and then comparing that to Janeway's relationship with the Doctor. And it was just really well researched, and there's just a lot of clips of them having similar conversations and the way they each handled it differently. And it made me want to watch Voyager. And I was like, what are you thinking, Matt? You hate Voyager, but it made me want to watch Voyager.
It happens from time to time.
I'm like the arc of the Doctor sounds super interesting to me. One of his major points is that Picard has this sort of snap judgment that it's a life, it's worth protecting. Bam, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to stand up for this life because it's life and it's sentient and it's worth protecting. Janeway has she's much slower to come around to that. There's a lot of seasons where she's still kind of restricting his rights and like still making decisions that are keeping him down to some degree. And he just goes into all these, like how she has more of a slow turn to the idea that the Doctor is a person, and his point is that that's a much more realistic view of how people get over that sort of prejudice, and I thought that was interesting. I really want some interest. I need some like interesting stuff to read on what makes an artificial intelligence sentient. I talked a lot about it a couple weeks ago on our Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. We talked about it with the Superhero Ethics podcast, and I really want to dive into that because what do you think of that? What do you think of AI and its possible sentience?
Well, first of all, I want to ask you this: what are you looking to read? Because are you looking to read fiction, nonfiction, just like conjecture?
Probably nonfiction, honestly. But I definitely like to read some fiction on it too. I don't know. I'm very intrigued by the idea because I have this very snap sort of feeling about it that they are not as valuable as human life.
Because if you're looking at fiction, I feel like Isaac Asimov is probably a good place to start.
Right. That's probably true.
But as far as what I think...
Yeah, what'd you think?
I think it's going to take a really long time for any sort of AI to become sentient.
That's what I said on our last podcast. I just said I don't think we're close. And I got feedback from some folks that were like, you may be a little behind on the science on it. We're like closer than you think.
Okay, but people say that, but then it's not like I was just reading about a few months ago. I was reading about the bots that Facebook, the little AIs that Facebook created and tested, and they were trying to, I can't remember what they were doing. They were trying to get them to like work out problems or something, and then they realized that they basically created their own language and were talking to each other because it was more efficient than
they created their own more efficient language, and the computer programmers could no longer understand what they were saying, which got a lot of headlines, but they were not...
It wasn't as deep as that.
It wasn't as nefarious as it seemed. Basically, they just created a robotic shorthand that, yes, the programmers could no longer understand. They didn't shut it down because they thought it was sentient. They shut it down because it was no longer useful. The project, if they couldn't understand it, it didn't make any sense to keep it up. So they rebooted it or whatever. But it is a very funny thing. We are getting to the point where we are going to be able to create AIs that learn, and in effect, AIs that can create the thing that makes it the scary thing, the scary precipice that I think we are on. I think we are on a precipice of creating a software that can create better software. Like if we get to that point, that's a train that doesn't stop. That's a train that we can't necessarily rein in. And I don't know how I feel about it, and I don't know how long it'll take. Like just like in that case where these things start talking in such an efficient way that we can no longer keep up. Like, who's to say? And I don't want to sit here and like fearmonger and talk Terminator, but so I don't even mean this in a negative way. But who's to say that you don't create something that can create technology beyond you so quickly that you can't really control its sentience. It's not even you creating sentient life. The idea of it's reproducing at a rate and improving and evolving at a rate that we can't keep up with it. And I think that computers are such a thing that at this point it could get there. Like within the next few years, we could reach that point where AI is creating AI. Yeah,
I think it could happen. In which case, we would be primates.
Well, yeah, maybe. That's the question. That's the question. Is it it's not the same thing as evolution. It's a different mechanism. It's something we're creating as opposed to something that is being selected out of us to create a new species. It's a lot of tricky questions involved, and the biggest thing is what gives life value. And then I start deconstructing what gives life value, and when I do that, I get into dangerous logical places, because I'm like, oh well, basically I start coming up with why I think robots aren't worth anything, but it all there's really no difference between a truly evolved sentient robot and a human being.
I would come down on it like this. You can have all sorts of political and religious beliefs, but unless you know for 100% fact that a robot is not life or an AI is not life, and they are exhibiting all of the behaviors of life, I think you just kind of have to, if you want to keep your religion, that's fine, but you need to treat the robot and treat the AI as if it is a real thing and respect its wishes and, be kind to it. Same as you should anybody else.
I'm with you on that, but you said a very short statement there that is what I want to dig into, and that is, you said all of the traits of life, or traits of a living thing.
I'm saying we can't know.
What are those traits? And we need to decide. We need to figure out what we value and what makes life valuable, in a sense that, like, when the computers get there, we know they've crossed a line,
I think I value the ambiguity of life.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer my question.
It doesn't. But nothing would. Nothing will answer your question.
That's a bullshit cop-out.
It's not a cop-out. There's not an actual answer.
That is, I agree, but that doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing an answer to get closer to an answer. There are definitely things about life, one of the things I brought up on our last cast on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, when we did the ethics of the MCU, and that got us into this. One of the things to me that makes life valuable is uniqueness. Mm-hmm. Once a life is born, currently we can't reproduce that life. We can reproduce other lives, but a human being has a uniqueness. Now, currently, any AI we create, or another AI creates, we should be able to back up or store. Mm-hmm. Now, then you talk about destroying the software. That's a different issue, and that's really what we'd have to get down to, is like destroying the software. Is it, if it's a life and you destroy its software? I don't know, man. I don't know.
But even if you backed up everything that AI was, and then unless you kept it and made sure, just the fact that you're starting that life out, if you keep it with the other AI, that backup is going to be experiencing its life differently than the other one did, and therefore will create a new person or a new version. I think nurture will take its course rather than nature, and create a difference. So I don't think whether you can I don't think backing it up is a good example of why it wouldn't be life.
No, I'm not saying it's an example of why it isn't life. I guess my thing is, like, I almost don't see why we would need them to ever, like, make the sacrifice if they can be backed up. Like, they're almost immortal in that sense, which makes them even more scary. I don't know. That's. It feels like, at this point, at least, anything that we have, anything we have is repeatable, including the experiences, including the memory engrams that we could just implant in the new thing. But then how is that different from us, really? Like, that's the thing, is like, all of these questions always get me back to, how is that different from us, really?
Yeah, and it sounds like the argument you were kind of making is that maybe the ability to sacrifice is what defines life?
No, I was actually getting at, like, why do we even have to have the discussion of destruction of life if they can be backed up? If like, it almost feels like you would never really kill an AI. You would always have them back up themselves. Like, instead of we go to sleep every 8 hours, they would back up every 8 hours. Or I just said we go to sleep every 8 hours. We go to sleep every 24 hours. They would back themselves up every 24 hours, and including all of their memories from the start. So it's like, they wouldn't. It almost makes it a moot point. Is like, why would you ever kill an AI unless it's an evil AI, and then you're just to the same place you're at when do you kill an evil human?
Right. I think for the same reason you kill Deadpool, or Wolverine. You're just going, "Hey, I just need a minute. Let me get away from this guy."
No, see that, and you're going the
before
opposite
they
direction.
come back.
Right, you're going the opposite direction than I am. I'm saying like there shouldn't be situations. I think as long as we create AI with the ability to back themselves up, that it's a weird question to even ask. Like, well, and then does it have? We're talking about destruction of its life, and that's one issue, sure. But we also need to talk about like its rights as a being. And that's a whole different issue. Like, what rights does it have? And at what point does it achieve those rights? Because there's AI now. Like, Siri on people's phones has some sort of simple AI or whatever. But like, and I'm using Siri as an example because it's just convenient. I don't know that I would really call that AI. But it serves a function. I would not currently give that any kind of rights because it's a program that's serving a function. But at what point does it cross the line to data? What point does does a coffee pot become data? You know?
Well, I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know.
It hurts my brain to think about, but I want to think about it more.
As a species, we can't even decide like which actual people get rights, you know? So that's still a little up for debate on certain issues.
Sure.
So I don't know.
But I would say,
I don't know about a toaster.
I would say those are issues we are constantly wrestling with.
We are, and we'll have to wrestle with this as well. Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. We're getting to the point that we're gonna have to wrestle with this in a real way, not just a sci-fi way. And I want to know. I want to work out this question. I want some theories. I want to like know what people are saying out there about what might register as sentience.
I think personally we'll have to, you know how they, like a lot of journals and stuff will say like, oh, well, you know, a dog or a cat is the intellectual equivalent of a human 3-year-old. I think we're going to have to come up with stuff for that, like that for AI. And once they get smarter than us, we need to have some real conversations. Hopefully we'll have those conversations for real before that happens.
That's why I'm saying it. That's what I'm talking about. Like, we need.
Well, I'm not going to solve it.
No, but I mean, we can have the conversation. We can figure out what we feel about it. Because it's weird, but we're in a world where it's possible by our lifetime we'll be like voting on issues like this. Like,
I think honestly, if it happens, like I don't know, like if I think if machines get the ability to, or AI get the ability to, or just become smarter than us and self-aware,
right?
I think we're dead.
I think that's an alarmist view.
I don't think it's an alarmist view. We're a shitty species.
We don't know that to say that anything you're going to encounter is just going to kill you is just kind of.
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying cold logical. No, I'm saying cold logical machines are going to kill us. Not anything.
Not necessarily. Well, see, and that's there's the rub. It's like the cold logical machine would kill us. It depends on what its primary drivers are, and generally those are set by us. So, talking about Asimov, like you said, talk about his 3 laws. Absolutely. You give him those 3 laws of not harming humans, then
Yeah, you'd have to have that.
Yeah.
You'd have to have that.
Or do you? If it's that sentient, do we have a right to give it those laws? Like, it's
yeah.
It's
well,
crazy.
I mean, do you have a right to raise your child?
Well, but raising a child, I agree. There's a parallel there. But
unfortunately, the Mac is going to go to college and it's going to say, well, you say not to harm humans, but you know what? You're using me for war and you're harming humans. So humans are not to be trusted because they're contradictory. And then we're on the chopping block. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe. I'm
saying we're dead.
I don't think we're necessarily dead. I don't think it has to go the way of Skynet. It could go the way of Data. Although I don't think it's going the way of Data. It could go...
No.
It could go... No. I mean, it's not going the way of Data in that we're not going to have one being... If we get to the point where there's AI and it can reproduce itself, I believe it is going to be everywhere in no time, to the point that we're going to have an entire civilization to contend with.
I don't think... It probably won't be Skynet, and it probably won't be Data. It'll probably be that, like, stupid Transference movie with Johnny Depp.
Now you're going too deep for me. What is Transference with Johnny Depp?
It's just, like, one asshole who put his mind into a computer, and it was just an asshole who was everywhere.
Another option, an option that is similar to what you're talking about. Have you seen Her?
No, and I want to.
I don't want to spoil it for you then, but that is about it weirdly, like, I know you've probably heard the kind of plot is that he kind of falls in love with his phone. Like that's the tagline of the movie almost is like, dude falls in love with the AI of his phone. And I actually really love that movie. I think it's really good. But it actually kind of gets into these issues more than I expected it to.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I recommend it. So that in that movie, there's a similar sort of like, just the AIs exist, and you can buy an AI for your phone, and you can get different kinds. But they're all actually... You know, they all start like gaining sentience and stuff. It's real interesting.
All right.
So I recommend, or at least it's debatable whether there's sentience there. And then you start to think like, when I hear about this movie, I think it's going to be about a sad guy, and then I'm like, or is it just about a totally reasonable dude who fell in love with like another sentient life form? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. This was fun. We went in a direction I did not expect.
Yeah, I don't even know how we got here.
Well, I don't know. I was about to close out the show, and then you brought something up that got us here.
I brought up a Captain Sulu movie. That's all I said, man.
Yeah, man. That got us here. I blame you. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. We are going to be back with you very soon with more news updates, more episode reviews, and also we'll be doing a Discovery rewatch that's going to be dropping real soon. So, in preparation for the new season. So stick with us, subscribe, all that stuff. Peace.
Live long and prosper, y'all.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at Star Trek UCast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.